Welcome to KYCPA's Behind the Numbers. I'm Kimberly Lindsay, your host. I have with me today Cara Silletto, and she's going to speak with us about everything going on in the workforce with the Great Resignation and quiet quitting and other things going on that we can do to help our employees and our leadership through this new world of employment. Welcome, Cara.
Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. So great to see you all again. It's been a while since I've chatted with the Kentucky CPA group. And so glad to be back having these updated conversations about the workforce. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what has been happening with the workforce. We've all felt the Great Resignation in most of our organizations, or we're seeing it happen right around us. And then, of course, now we have this phenomenon called quiet quitting, hashtag quiet quitting, which is actually something that people have defined in different ways. So I wanted to let you know what's going on right now and how things are moving forward. So first things first, the Great Resignation is not over. We saw tons of people this spring switch jobs, and we're still seeing pretty strong quit numbers each month. Now, this impending recession that people are talking about, and again, we're changing the definition of recession right now of, is it just the 2 down quarters of GDP, or are there more factors that have to play in because consumer behavior has not yet shifted based on what we thought would be defined as a recession. So yes, we right now are still seeing people quit, and the primary reason is a lot of groups are still hiring. So even though there are some companies out there, several companies out there doing layoffs, particularly in the tech industry and certainly in Silicon Valley and places like that, most organizations across Kentucky are still hiring people. They're still backfilling for positions that they've lost. They're still growing their organization and adding some new positions. Some of them are reworking. You know, my specialty is in employee retention. That's what I've been doing for 10 years. And we have been begging organizations to hire more HR capacity to really manage employee engagement and even create a retention specialist position or a recruiting and retention role instead of just focusing on the recruiting side. So some organizations are even hiring for new positions like that as they do a reorg to make the organization the better structure that we need to really support today's new workforce. So there's all of that still happening. And until companies stop hiring, people are still going to job hop. They're still going to leave. They're still going to look for that new opportunity. And then, as far as quiet quitting goes, here's the deal. Quiet quitting has been happening for a long, long time. We just didn't call it quiet quitting. In many cases, it was called disengaged employees, or not even disengaged, that they were working against the company, but they just weren't going to give it their all. That's what quiet quitting is. People are just tired of going above and beyond, above and beyond, above and beyond. I've got to give an extra mile, give another hour, and things like that. So think about it this way. It was actually more like a scope creep that happened over time. And we kept saying, we have to do more with less. We have to do more with less. We have to do more with less. We have to absorb this new client growth, or we have to absorb this new, whatever is new workload without adding more overhead. Or we lost people and we have to absorb those responsibilities and those roles. And we just kept putting more and more and more on our good workers' plates, right? That's who gets delegated to, is the people are going to get it done. And so I have to back up one step farther and let you know that we have a demographic hourglass, okay, in the work world. We have the baby boomers that were 80 million strong. Gen X that came after that was only 60 million. And then we had another 80 million millennials, not to mention the Gen Z folks that are just now getting out of their CPA programs and whatnot. So the reason that that is important is because the baby boomers 30 years ago said, you got to stay till the job gets done. And they were the ones who created these partner tracks and expectations. And even within the corporate space for accounting and CPAs, they set the expectation that we got to do this. We got to stay late to close all the books. We got to, finish this project. We got to stay on top of that. And just kept pushing and pushing and pushing people to do more. And so the Gen Xers, because they were the smaller group, they tended to do what they were told. They fell in line and said, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, got it. And a lot of Gen Xers I talk to say that they realized pretty early they had to play that game, that boomer game, to be successful. And they realized I just have to sacrifice at home if I want to have a good career, if I want to make partner, if I want to be a CFO, I have to do that. So then when the millennials came in, and now Gen Z as well, at now 80 million plus, that group is looking at the sacrifices. Let's be honest, the sacrifices that were made by the baby boomers and the Gen Xers to have their career and to have their success. And many of them, I don't know about you, but I saw people in those roles and with those career aspirations that they lost their marriage. They missed their kids growing up. They missed a lot of things, family events and whatnot, even trips and vacations and things that they couldn't do because it was, tax season or whatever timing that was really, really busy at your company or within the governmental deadlines. So now I feel like I have to give all that backstory to unpack why do more with less, do more with less, do more with less, do more with less. The pendulum has swung so far, and now people are going, no, I can't do that anymore. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to sacrifice that much. And so when we hear people talk about work-life balance, for example, I know most people hate that term, but here's the deal. It means something different to each person. It isn't just work from home. That's one type of work-life balance. But there's also, just flexible scheduling. There's even the mental load that people take home with them, the stress, right? My CPA happens to be a friend of mine. We met professionally and then kind of became friends over time. And what she has said to me in her profession of just the stress of taking things home and having to always worry about clients and staff and the politics and all different things that are happening either at a firm or a company, that takes a toll on people. It's not sustainable to do that. So here we normalize working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, which should have just been during the busy season, not all the time, not year round, and people can take the pendulum pushing them to the edge for a while, but it's not sustainable to do it forever. So you've got the demographics, with the younger workforce pushing back and just saying, I've seen the sacrifices that were made, and I don't want that lifestyle. I don't want to give up my family time and my hobbies and other things just to have that status and that money, for example. So lots of things that got unpacked there, but I don't know. What are your thoughts, Kimberly?
Well, I was thinking as someone that is in a manager role or a leadership role, and you're faced with, I had a decline in the amount of employees I was able to retain, and now you've hired some new people, and you are trying to make sure that the new people are trained up to speed, and the people that have been there and have gone through the weeds and have hung on, now these new employees come in and you're trying to make sure that you don't recreate this, I would say, tornado effect of dumping work on people or trying to do more with less. How do you start that changeover of, okay, we recognize there's an issue, we need to make sure that we don't keep on regurgitating the same mistakes over and over again? Do you cut back on what your workloads are, your customers? Do you get more employees, get more amped up? How do you train your leadership yourself
Right.
to get to a place where you have a healthy work culture and workloads?
Yep, lots of thoughts there as well and different suggestions. One is definitely making sure that your folks at your organization who manage others, whatever their title is, if they manage others, make sure that you are providing leadership development for those folks. And I don't care if they are 28 and they're a younger leader. I don't care if they're 68 and they're an older leader. Everyone needs to understand the evolving expectations of today's workforce, the generational differences. Communication tactics have even changed. I mean, we have new channels for communication, new preference for communication, and a lot of miscommunication happening because, let's be honest, the fundamentals of good communication are not always happening and often not happening because people are so busy. I have tons of friends that are in management and professional services, and they just say, my plate is overflowing. How could I possibly have a one on one with every person who reports to me every week? Are you kidding me? And then I say, but put yourself in the person who works for you, put yourself in their shoes. They don't even get one meeting a week with you to get your full attention where you're not multitasking and doing other things. We've kind of set ourselves up with being so busy that we can't take care of the new hires. We can't mentor. Some of the companies, we're a training organization, and some companies tell us, oh, Cara, it's not the budget that's the problem. We don't have time for training. Isn't that like getting an oil change? I mean, oh, I don't have time for an oil change. I just have to keep driving. I don't have time for an oil change. I don't have time to get new tires. I got to just keep driving. Well, you're going to end up on the side of the road with a blown tire or a blown engine. Pause and do maintenance. Keep up with what people need. And we're talking, an hour here, an hour there, a half day here, a half day there. Not anything crazy, but so many organizations kind of cut training and development as far as the soft skills and leadership skills. And a lot of that also has to do with all the regulations and all of the accounting changes that happen because you all get your credits, right? You do your ethics hours that are required, you do your CPE hours that are required, and most of those are going to be based on the technical changes and requirements that you have to go through. But how many hours are you getting of leadership development and communication, evolution of communication, things like that, that are really, really necessary to create a place where people want to work, you all? That's the key. You can't just pay well. I'm sure most of you pay very well, but it's now about compensation and culture. And if both of those are not within that range and threshold of what people are looking for, they can go elsewhere and find another opportunity that is. So, yes, we absolutely have to focus more on creating that better place to work. And we like to joke that your culture is not posters on a wall. Your culture is what walks down the hall as far as how people treat each other and how they communicate with one another. Is everybody behind and busy and sorry I'm late and I didn't have time to get to that? And if that's how people are talking, then that's your culture. Your culture is everyone's two steps behind, everyone's overloaded, everyone is stressed, no one has time to mentor, manage, train, onboard properly, just throw them into the deep end. Then that's your culture. And can you not only attract people into that culture, can you keep people into that culture, in that culture? And more importantly, can you sustain an organization for the next 5 to 10 years if that's your culture? I really want organizations to think about that. And if you're in a management role too, I'm sure somebody's listening going, yeah, exactly. But I'm not in a decision-making position to tell them that. Well, first of all, forward this podcast to the people that are. But second of all, as a manager, you really can make a difference on your team and your crew to be hyper vigilant about not overloading people's plates, about communicating expectations, about training and mentoring, finding that time, even if it's 10 minutes a week that you have for each person, because you're thinking, oh, I don't have an hour or even 30 minutes. Just touch base with all of your people regularly, whether that's scheduled or you do keep a little checklist next to your computer and you have an impromptu every week that you just call them, check in. It doesn't have to be face to face at all. I've had a virtual company for 10 years, you all. 10 years. My staff is all across the country. We're in 4 different states. Our staff is in 4 different states. And we only see each other once a year when we come together for our staff retreat. I fly everybody in for that. And we have an incredible company culture. We love each other. We trust each other. We have each other's back. We communicate beautifully because we have systems in place, and I have trained everyone properly on the different channels, when to use chat versus when to use text versus when to use phone versus when to use email. And we talk about that, the preferences, the managing people who are not right in front of you. It's just a different strategy and different communication approach than managing people that you see at the water cooler and things like that. We have to build in our water cooler talk into our meetings. So we purposefully plan the first 5 to 10 minutes as catch up and chit chat. Now, my busy, productive people are going, what? I can't waste 10 minutes of every meeting doing that. But for us, that is the only time we see each other, is when we're on those meetings. And so we build it in and we make sure that that works. And then we get to business and stay productive and hold our folks accountable. Then we do that with the rest of the 50 minutes or whatnot for that meeting.
All right, these are some good tips. You said everybody has like their individual, what they consider their work life balance and idea of that. We have various company sizes from small to large, and it's not always something that you could do anonymously. What would be like your recommendation to find out what each employee or what the majority of employees would consider a good work life balance?
Sure. Sure. So you said something very critical that I want to address. You said, what are individuals' preferences or needs, something like that. And then you said, or the majority of the workforce. And the problem is, we have been making decisions based on the majority wants this, or even worse, an assumption of the majority wants this. This is what our partner group thinks, so that must reflect the rest of the group, which is not true most of the time. The newer workers, the non-partners, the associates, the staff that's under the CFO, whatever your structure is, a lot of times we make assumptions as to what other people want. And then it must be not just what I want, but maybe what I wanted at that age, right? Okay, I know they're younger than me. Well, when I was 30 or 40 or whatnot, then this was what I wanted. So let's do that. Well, yeah, but that was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. The things have changed so much over even just these last 10 years since the recession, the last recession that we had. And so first things first, if you are not doing employee engagement or employee satisfaction surveys, it is a must, okay? But you don't want to get the kind that's only once a year, because that is not real-time data. And by the time you get the results, things have already gone wrong. You can't change it fast enough. And so you want to get a system that absolutely is real time, at least quarterly, that you're asking some questions, maybe not all the big questions, but that you're running multiple questions. And there's a ton of vendors out there who have that type of surveying capability. I would also recommend that you use not anonymous software. Most people think that surveys need to be anonymous for folks to be candid, and the new workforce feels the opposite. They want you to know that they have a problem, and they want you to come talk to them about it, either to fix it or when it's fixed. They want to know that it got addressed, and they want to potentially be a part of that solution as well. That's the first thing, is we really want to start looking at eliminating assumptions and getting to know our people one-on-one. Then, to answer your question about work-life balance, how do we know how that's defined, and then addressing that? That is an individual question, okay? You guys have all heard of the golden rule of treat others the way you want to be treated. Now, and many of you have heard this, now it's the platinum rule. Treat people the way they want to be treated. Because even though I prefer my way, they prefer a different way. So I'm going to have to manage that person in a different way than what I would naturally communicate, for example. So that work-life balance conversation is the same thing. One person may want to work out in the mornings and then go home and shower and not have to come in until 9. But then another person might want to come in at 7 or 8 and leave at 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock or whenever, because they want to get their kid off the bus or get their kids. My 8-year-old just started the after school activities. We've just hit that age. So now I'm like, how am I supposed to get him somewhere at 3:30? What working parent can do that? Well, we offer our staff that flexibility. If you need to get your kid from school to practice or whatever, that type of thing. So for some people, it's morning flexibility. Other people, it's afternoon, early evening flexibility. Some people, I know a ton of CPA firms, at least, that were doing mandatory Saturdays for decades during tax season. They have now flexed that and said it doesn't have to be Saturday mornings. Yes, we have to pull a lot of weight from January to April, but you can do it on your own time. And that really freed that up for those parents that have Saturday morning soccer games. For everybody, it just means something different. Some people want the hybrid work or complete remote work, but they're really more productive and that is a better fit for them. And they're going to look for an organization that is going to be that kind of fit. So there's not a one size fits all. You can't just make a work-life balance policy. It really comes down to the organization giving the managers flexibility to get to know their people and to work with them as individuals to get the job done, but also to meet their other priorities that are outside of work.
Thank you so much for all of your great advice. And if someone has questions or wants to contact you, do you have an email or a website that you would like to share?
Absolutely. The best way to find me is on LinkedIn. I'm the only Cara Silletto. That's Cara with a C. And also, our website is wereduceturnover.com. And you can find some extra resources if you're really serious about reducing turnover. We have a vault of resources where you can download a cost of turnover calculator and all kinds of ebooks that I've written and different things like that. So that is at magnetvault.com, VAULT, magnetvault.com.
Thank you so much for joining us. And again, contact Cara if you would like more information. And thank you for talking with us on KyCPA's Behind the Numbers.
Awesome. Thanks.